Hi, it's Jan Beta, and today I'm going to install the software for the TL866 EPROM programmer in Linux, which I have running on my elderly Lenovo here. So I installed Linux Mint on this Lenovo, which is a very old model, SL510, Core 2 Duo, 8 MB RAM and an SSD. And it runs pretty well. This machine previously ran Windows 10, which it was struggling with quite a bit. And it's becoming obsolete, of course. And there's no way this can be upgraded to Windows 11. So I decided to go with Linux. The thing is, I need to get some of the stuff I had running on this to work with Linux. And one particular thing is the TL866, which is my go-to EPROM programmer. I've had this for 9 years now, I think, since 2016 or something like that. It's the old version. There's also the TL866-2 and the more recent EPROM programmers. And these USB EPROM programmers aimed at the hobbyist market basically all have one thing in common, and that is they don't come with Linux software. There's a native Windows program that works pretty well that doesn't run on Linux, of course, without some tinkering. And we're going to tinker a bit today. There are 2.5 ways to get this to work in Linux, and I'm going to try to show you at least 2 of them and talk about the halfway. So many of the things I'm going to talk about are going to apply to the newer versions of the TL866. Mine is a TL866 first version CS that I've modded to be an A model, which has some additional functionality. And there are some walkthroughs for the newer ones. And I found this walkthrough for this model, TL866, on an old Blogspot blog. Now, yeah, I don't know how long this is going to stay online, so I'm going to try this first. This is aimed at running the Windows software in Linux using Wine. Wine, of course, is a Windows simulator, if you will, and you can use that to run Windows software on systems that are running other operating systems. And most of the times it works really well for basic stuff, but if you have USB stuff involved, as you can see, it's going to get a bit more involved. I'm going to switch to a screen capture now. Of course, this blog post is going to be linked in the video description, and there are blog posts for the newer versions that you have to find with your particular preferred search engine if you plan on doing this. It should be basically the same, but these strings that we have to enter are a bit different for different models. I hope this is the correct one for this model. I haven't tried this before, but yeah. I'm going to try to capture the screen properly so you can follow along. The Linux I'm using here is Linux Mint, which is Debian based, 22.2, the most recent version, in the cinnamon flavor. With the Cinnamon desktop. You can use this probably on all Debian-based installations of Linux, and there are tutorials for other flavors of Linux out there. So this is the Debian version, or Ubuntu, if you will. This is based on Ubuntu. So the same steps should apply to different Linux installations. Let me take a couple of seconds to thank the sponsor for this video, PCBWay, my favorite manufacturer of prototype PCBs of all kinds. And if you like purple PCBs like I do, I have good news for you. They extended their offer of free purple solder mask for the whole month of October. So you can still get the upgrade to purple, which usually costs a bit extra, for free. And PCBWay also do CNC machining, 3D printing, sheet metal fabrication, injection molding, you name it, basically everything the tinkerer needs. Their pricing is super reasonable, the quality is excellent, and they are friendly people to work with. So I highly recommend checking out the link in the video description. Back to our Mini Pro shenanigans. So the first step we have to do is to obtain a copy of the MiniPro software. There's a direct link here. However, I'm not going to use the version from the website because my TL866 is modded and the newer versions of the software recognize the badly done mod and want to degrade it to the unmodded version, so I don't use that. I use an installer file that I kept, that I had running in Windows, and it worked fine. We have to install Wine, so we are going to go to our software repository of some sort, and we're just going to install Wine. So this is 9.0. We're going to install this one because it's the more recent one, I think. Install. And it installs the whole package here. That's going to take a while probably, but it should run through fine. And then after that we have to do some trickery. So the next step is going to be installing the RAR file, which is a packed file, which we're going to have in our downloads folder. So now we have the executable unpacked here. So we are going to open a terminal and we should have Wine on here. Configuration, we just need to start our downloaded and unpacked file. And you can just drag and drop the path to it into the terminal. And we should be able to start this, I hope, with this version of Wine. Yay! So this is our MiniPro setup, just like you would have it in Windows. Okay, folder is not available. I think we have to browse and install it in C. Oh, D, of course, is the CD-ROM drive. We want to install it in C MiniPro. Okay, we're going to install the USB driver. So, but we should have that's our personal folder, and we have Wine here, and indeed we have MiniPro. Should be able to start that with Wine, I guess. Yeah, there we are. Does look a bit funky, but everything's here. But the hardware interface is not showing. But we can run the software, seems to somewhat work. We have all our chips here. Okay. And we have access to our home folder, which is what I desired. This is how you use Wine, basically. It just creates a folder where you have a Windows hard disk, basically. And newer versions of Wine also make like icons for the applications that you install in it. We have to download a setup API from this Git repository that doesn't exist anymore. Oh, it does. Okay. But the direct link doesn't exist anymore. So we need to install the Wine32 version, I think, because we're on such an old laptop. So we're just going to download the setup API DLL from here. The pre-compiled one, because that's much easier. This should be in downloads now, and we're going to have to put it here in our folder. So we're just going to go back to our downloads folder. And that should be our setup DLL, setup API. And we have copied it into our folder. And now we're going to have to do some other trickery. We need to create a file, and we need to do that as root. So I'm going to enter sudo in my terminal, which gives me root access because I am the root. I'm the root user. So, and we need to copy this into the terminal. We need to create this, of course. So I need to run a text editor like Nano. So we need to put these attributes in there. Just going to copy and paste them. Yeah. And then you exit Nano with Control X. And we want to save. And we want this name. So now we should have created the file that sets this up, and we have to restart udev, which is the device manager in Linux basically. We have to restart that with udev adm trigger. Failed to write change. Okay, we need to probably sudo this. Yep, now it ran through. Okay. So yeah, you need to have root access for this. And now, if everything has worked, you should be able to plug the TL866 in and start up the application from Wine. Let's see if we can do that. So starting our application again. Hardware interface, no device. So I'm now going to plug in my TL866 here. Let's see if we get this to work. It's all a bit fuzzy. This is the change programmer from TL866CS. Do you wish to open? Don't show again. So it does recognize that this is a hacked version, but it works. This is a version that still works. So we have the TL866 in here now. That's pretty amazing. Okay, let's see if we can do something with it. I'm just going to stop the screen recording, and then we're going to probably have a TL866, a working one with the Windows application. So we have the Windows application running here, and I have some EPROMs here, and we can try to do some stuff with this actually. I'm just going to insert an EPROM here, which is a W27C512 WinBond. Hope this is a working one, I'm not sure. But I'm just going to use the 27C512, and we have the WinBond 27C512 in here. It is the Windows app basically. So we can blank check. It's not empty, so we can erase it, maybe. The programmer reacts as if this was Windows, basically. Erase successful. Nice! So yeah, this just works like Windows. The only problem is that my view here is a bit dark, but I've never used these icons. That's a bit of a graphics glitch, but it doesn't really matter that much. So now we should be able to do a blank check as well. And and it's blank. Nice. And the good thing is that Wine is actually giving this application access to my regular file system. So we can just save our EPROM files in the regular file system here, and it should all work fine. That's pretty amazing. So, and we can access this. Nice. And I just realized that Wine actually put a link to the application on the desktop, and you can easily put this in your favorites here. And it's also in our start menu. Mini Pro Programmer can start that from here, or the help that just installed it with the installer. And this just works. You can just start it from here, and it recognizes our programmer. Easy as that. Another way of having a similar outcome is to just install VirtualBox and have a full Windows installation in the virtual machine, which I'm not going to go into because it feels like cheating, but I've used the TL866 in a virtual machine on my MacBook for ages, and that worked really, really well. I had a Windows XP installation in a little VirtualBox virtual machine and used that solely to program EPROMs. You have to install the editions, VirtualBox editions, guest editions, I think is what they are called, to have access to the USB port, and you have to set up the USB port in the VirtualBox user interface, but that's relatively easy because it's a graphical user interface that's relatively straightforward, and it works. It just works. It's a bit more tricky to get access to the file system, and of course you have to boot up Windows in your virtual machine every time. So this is much more elegant, if you will, the Wine method. I count that VirtualBox method as a half method because it's basically running Windows software in Windows. VirtualBox obviously works on a lot of different architectures, and it works really well. What should I say? You just need a Windows license for that and things like that, or a hacked version of Windows if you are more of the piratey kind. The second proper method of getting the TL866 to run on macOS and also on Linux, which I'm going to show you, is using an open source terminal-based approach that I'm going to show you now. Okay, we're still on the same blog page here, and probably this link is dead now. We have the command line Mini Pro software, which I think the author moved away from GitHub. Yep. David Griffith is the author, and it's moved to GitLab. I'm going to put the proper link in the video description here. This is a terminal-based version of this, and works really well in Linux, BSD, macOS, and other flavors of Unix. And it's compatible with all the USB programmers that are commonly used by the hobbyists like me. No worries there. Installing on Linux. That's a bit of an operation because it's not in the normal repositories, but we are going to have to install some dependencies first, some of which are probably already installed in Mint. So I'm just going to copy and paste this into my terminal here. And yeah, my fingerprint sensor still doesn't work. And we want to install this. This is the instructions for Ubuntu, which is the same as Linux Mint. So we have installed our dependencies. And there's also instructions for other versions. Check out the source code and compile. So we're compiling our own Mini Pro software here. Let's see if this just works. Nope, we have to copy this one line at a time. We're cloning the Git repository here. And the next line, cd Mini Pro. cd Mini Pro. It's just changing to the directory. And then we just enter make, which is going to compile the source code in there. Hopefully. Yay! Okay, sudo make install. If you have a T56, you need to download and install algorithms from XGQ's official software package. Okay. If you want to access the programmer as a regular user, you will have to configure udev to recognize the program and set appropriate access permissions. Okay, so we need to do some more terminal stuff. Udev, and we're going to trigger again. I'm just copying and pasting here. You also have to add your regular user to the plugdev system group. Okay, copy this. I'm going to insert this. And of course, I'm not your user, but I'm Jan on this machine, I think. User Jan is not. Am I Jan in lowercase? Yay! Okay, so we should have everything installed, I think. And we should be able to run this from the terminal now. Okay, man mini pro. List all supported devices. List devices like this. So this is a bit more involved to use. Wow, okay, it can do basically everything that the graphical user interface software can do. So we can do firmware updates with this as well. Interesting. So these are all the devices. Wow. LW. I'm just figuring this out while I go. So Mini Pro, uppercase L is the option. Now we have our devices here. Okay, so Mini Pro P, the part, is a 27C512 add dip28 is the package, and we want to perform a blank check. So this should hopefully blank check this. Code memory section is blank. Yay! It works. Okay, I'm going to have to tinker a bit more with this, but you get the idea, I guess. You basically can do all the options that you can do with the program, Windows program, from the command line, and you can also script stuff to make it easier, I guess. Pretty cool, actually. So this works, and the other one also still works, I hope. Yep, it still says TL866A. So both of these options are now available to me, which is pretty cool. So that's how I got my Mini Pro TL866 running in Linux Mint. Your mileage may vary, of course, but the same steps that are described in the blog post there or in other blog posts for other devices. As I said, the little udev definitions vary a bit depending on your device, but these were the udev definitions for the TL866, the classic one. It seems to work flawlessly, apart from some graphics glitches in Wine. But you can, of course, install Wine from the website, which is going to give you a more recent version than what I installed on here, and that's probably going to work even better. So yeah, pretty neat. I can now use my Mini Pro in Linux on this machine. That is a milestone for me as a Linux noob. Maybe there's going to be more Linux tutorial videos. This wasn't much of a tutorial, this was just me figuring things out, following instructions, but maybe it helped you doing the same, or maybe it encourages you to try the same. Let me know in the comments how it went, and maybe you have some extra tips for me or for everybody else who's reading the comments. That's it for today. Thank you very much for your time. Hope this was informative and maybe even a bit entertaining. Special thanks as always to everybody who supports me on Patreon or on Ko-fi or on the YouTube channel memberships page. The links to that are on my website and in the video description. I'm Jan Beta. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.